This morning I'd like to share the story of this quilt patch from 1880, and the name of this story is Left Behind. Let sons of Bacchus not be dismayed, but join in each jovial blade. Come dance and drink and lend your aid to help me with the chorus. Instead of spa, we'll drink brown ale and pay the reckoning on the nail. No man for debt shall go to jail from Gary Owen and glory. That is one verse and a chorus of the song called Gary Owen. The band played Gary Owen as the 12 companies of the 7th Cavalry marched out of Fort Abraham Lincoln in Dakota Territory. It was May 14, 1876. They marched past Scouts Row, where squaws were keening. They marched past Suds Row, where laundresses were crying. And they marched past Officers Row, where the soldiers' families peered from behind white lace curtains. They paused for a moment to let the great gates open. And then they marched out into the early morning fog that swirled around the horses' hooves. With them marched Private Thomas Stowers of Mine Lick, Tennessee. Those who watched them go wondered that it seemed that they moved on the clouds of heaven, which did not bode well for their safe return. Now, Thomas had been 15 years old when the Civil War started, much too young to enlist. So he had run away to join his older brother's Confederate regiment. Unfortunately, the Yankees found him first. He was conscripted, and he was taught to fire cannon. He spent the next 4 years aiming cannon at what he was afraid was his brother's regiments. Whenever he could, he would aim the cannon straight up because he was so afraid that he would kill his own brother. When the war was over, he was given an honorable discharge. By then, he was nearly completely deaf. Well, he returned to Mine Lick, the small town where he and his brother were born. He went to find his brother, who was chopping wood. "I won't have you here," said his brother. "I lost a leg at Shiloh, and you fought for the Yankees. I will not have you here. You can stay for supper, but in the morning you must be gone." So Thomas left again. He went west. He joined General Armstrong Custer's 7th Cavalry that was newly formed. He traveled through Nebraska and Kansas with Custer, making the frontier safe for pioneers. Now they were in the Dakota Territory, getting rid of the Cheyenne and Sioux, whose sacred land was the Black Hills, where folks had discovered gold. Well, they'd been out searching for the Indians for about a month when they stopped to camp at the Powder River. They were going to wait for their supply ship to arrive. A day or so later, when it did arrive, Thomas and some of his friends stayed up late, drinking and carrying on. It made it hard to get up the next morning and join the rest of the companies. In fact, they had trouble doing that. Thomas had to step out of line to adjust a stirrup. And in fact, his company, Company B, was late for muster. As a punishment, General Custer sent them to the back of the line to guard the pack animals. Custer and the 5 companies with him traveled on. They were in search of the Indians. Well, they found them. On June 25th, 1876, General George Armstrong Custer and the 212 soldiers with him were massacred at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Thomas Stowers and his Company B survived only because they were never there in the first place. Well, Thomas did his best after the battle to improve his reputation, and in fact, in 1879, he was discharged again as having been a good soldier. And then Thomas disappears. Years go by. In 1902, the little town of Mine Lick becomes Baxter, named for Jerry Baxter, the railroad magnate. And then, at the age of 72, Thomas reappears. In 1918, he arrives to check in at the Old Soldiers' Home in Dayton, Ohio. He has a great huge box of books. Some of his favorites are detective stories. He moves in and spends many years there. Then in 1931, he decides to go and visit his sister's family back down in Baxter. The next year, he comes to Baxter to stay for good. In 1933, he died and was buried at the Oddfellows Cemetery just east of Baxter, despite the fact that on his tombstone are written the words, "Sole survivor of the Little Bighorn." He didn't survive that battle because he had been left behind. And that's the story, the true story, of Thomas Stowers from Baxter, Tennessee.